The snow came early that year, thick and unforgiving, wrapping the deep woods in a silence so heavy it felt alive, and Elias Crow welcomed it the way other men welcomed company. Because silence never judged him and the cold never asked questions, he had built his cabin with his own hands after the war took everything, else, brothers, purpose, and the voice inside, him that once believed he deserved happiness, and for 10 long years, the woods had been his only witness, his only companion. Each morning he split logs until his palms bled, hunted just enough to survive, and spoke to no one but the trees, believing solitude was safer than hope. Then one evening, as dusk bled into night and the wind howled like something wounded, he heard a sound that did not belong to the forest. A child's cough, thin and desperate. Elias froze, axe half raised, heart hammering like it hadn't in years, and followed the sound through knee-deep snow until he saw them at the edge of the trail, 4 shadows, huddled beneath a broken cart, a woman clutching 3 children, to her chest like she could shield them from winter itself. Her eyes lifted when she saw him, not with fear at first, but with exhaustion so deep it broke something open inside him. And when she tried to stand, her legs buckled and she would have fallen if Elias hadn't caught her. She smelled of cold and pine and desperation, and in that moment he realized she was burning with fever. The oldest boy, no more than 8, stepped forward with a stick raised like a weapon, his hands shaking, his jaw set in a way Elias recognized too well. The look of a child, forced to become a man too soon, and something in Elias softened in a way it hadn't since he buried his own family. He didn't ask questions. He simply lifted the woman into his arms, took the smallest child under one arm like a bundle of twigs, and told the others to follow if they wanted to live. They followed. Inside the cabin, warmth crept back into the walls as Elias stoked the fire higher than he ever had for himself, stripping off his own coat to wrap around the shivering woman, while the children watched him with wide, frightened eyes, unsure if this giant of a man was their savior or their last mistake. The woman woke hours later, eyes glassy but alert, and whispered her name, Margaret, before trying to rise and apologizing for the trouble, apologizing for existing, the way only someone long accustomed to being a burden ever does. Elias told her to rest, his voice rough from disuse, and that single word carried more kindness than he thought he had left. Over the next days, as the storm trapped them together, he learned pieces of their story without ever asking. A husband lost to sickness, a farm taken by debt, a journey meant to find relatives that ended with a broken wheel and winter closing in like a fist. The children, Thomas, Anna, and little Rose, watched Elias constantly, measuring him not by his words but by his actions, and what they saw confused them. A man who cooked clumsily but earnestly, who repaired boots by firelight, who left the last piece of meat for them and pretended he wasn't hungry. Margaret grew stronger, and with strength came fear, because she knew kindness in this world often came with a price, and one night she told him they would leave as soon as the snow eased, that she would not impose. Elias stared into the fire for a long time before answering, the truth clawing its way out of him, that he had never planned for anyone to stay, that he had built his life around being alone because loneliness felt earned, but that the cabin had never felt so warm, the woods never so quiet, as they had with their voices inside it. He didn't ask them to stay. He simply said winter was long and roads were dangerous, and they could decide when spring came. The children decided first. Thomas began following Elias into the woods, learning the names of trees and how to read tracks, his guarded eyes slowly filling with something like trust. Anna swept the cabin and sang softly when she thought no one was listening, her voice threading light through the rough-hewn walls. Little Rose stopped crying in her sleep once. Elias carved her a wooden bird and told her the forest watched over brave girls. Margaret watched all of this with tears she tried to hide, torn between gratitude and a terror of hoping too much. And when she finally laughed, really laughed at one of Elias's rare, dry jokes, he felt a crack run through the ice he had built around his heart. He told himself it was temporary, that come spring they would go and he would return to silence. But the lie grew harder to believe with every shared meal. Every night the children fell asleep safe under his roof. And as the winter deepened and the snow piled high against the cabin walls, Elias Crow, the man who had sworn never to love again, remained completely unaware that the family he thought he was sheltering from the cold was already, quietly and forever, becoming his own. If this story is touching something inside you, if you want to know what happens, When spring finally comes and weather are broken, man can truly become a father by choice rather than blood. Make sure you subscribe to the channel now, because this is only the beginning, and you won't want to miss the rest of their journey.